What's the most hurtful thing someone has ever said to you? Hey, people of Reddit, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going deep into a topic that's as real as it gets. The most gut-wrenching things people have ever been told. You know, the moments when someone said something that stuck with you, for better or for worse. We scoured Reddit for these stories, and let me tell you, they're raw, real, and sometimes really tough to hear. From heartbreaking betrayals to downright hurtful insults, these stories show the power words hold over our emotions. Before we start with the first story, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 20. I have a daughter with an extremely complicated illness. Almost lost her to it twice when she was almost 3 and again 6 months later. In between, this was 15 years ago, I broke down and wept, being so worried about her and also how distant my wife had become from me as well. After I settled down, my wife told me that me crying like that had made me less attractive. My daughter is very stable now, and I've been divorced for several years. Number 19. I had a theater teacher/director pull me aside after a show that I totally spaced a cue/line. It honestly was a super insignificant line, and the other actor improvised very well. And she straight up told me,
"Putting you in this show was the biggest mistake I've ever made. You're a disappointment."
She got fired 2 years later and went to jail for a couple of years for banging my best friend's cousin who was a 15-year-old student. I wonder if putting me in a play with one line was the biggest mistake she's ever made. Number 18.
You're a stupid diaper-wearing cripple, and the world would be better off without you.
My middle school bully? For context, I have spina bifida and suffer from total incontinence due to the nerves not working right. Number 17. When I was younger, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. My siblings and I shaved our heads to support her. This kid told me that he hopes my mom dies and that I look like I was in the Holocaust. She has been cancer-free for 13 years, but f that kid. My sister had a kid in her class who held a crumpled piece of paper to his head, turned to her, and said, "I look like your father." They were in 5th grade. Our dad had a brain tumor, he died of it. A year later, the same kid's dad hung himself at home. And that's when he apologized. F those kids. Number 16. My mother hit me in the face when I said, "I love you." I was 12 and she was abusive. I was tired of living that way and was desperate to try anything for her affection. My mother is an alcoholic narcissist. Her reactions spoke volumes. My mother would always say,
El amor nace, no se da.
Translated, love is born, not given, which never to this day understood what that meant. Number 15. Nobody will ever love you like I do. Said by a guy friend I told I didn't want to date. Messed me up after I stopped being friends with him, and I haven't had much luck dating, making me think of this every time something doesn't work out. Number 14. A good friend of mine once told me,
"Give up, you don't have a chance with her."
I found out years later that not only did I have a chance, but she was very heartbroken when I moved away. I absolutely would have stayed if I knew. Number 13. My friend's sister. You're not a freaking man, you're a coward. Girls don't like you because of that. You are in freaking college and you are scared of everything. You hug other men and sleep with your little stuffy to comfort you. You are turning my brother into a homophobic slur. She said that in a drunken rage when I was down on myself for not being very good at talking to girls. Joke's on her, I started dating my awesome girlfriend. The next week, my friend disowned her more or less. We were both appalled by her homophobic remarks and an insensitivity. Number 12. My mother screamed, "You worthless dog," in my face once. She was pissed because I told her I didn't want to hear about her sex life anymore. She said worse than that, but that's what still rattles around in my head on bad days. Honorable mention for the time I asked for a pair of skinny jeans when I was around 13, and she said, "Skinny jeans are for skinny people." That one took a toll. 3 years no contact now, and I've never felt more at peace. Number 11. I've come to think of you as a friend. This from my girlfriend of 2+ years. I thought I was going to marry her. Also, she'd had some mental health issues that year, and I stood by her side and tried my best to help her. This was also the day after I helped her move and 3 days before we were supposed to leave for a trip to Europe that my parents paid for her to go on. Number 10. You are nice, but damn, I have rarely seen someone as ugly as you. For context, teenagers summer camp. I was 17. This guy was supposed to be someone I was getting along with quite well. the whole group, but we were a few being always together. I was seated chatting with the whole group, and he came to say that randomly. I wasn't even interacting with him. Like he said my name so he could have my attention. It's like he needed to say it in front of everyone and he didn't feel like he was saying something wrong. What was weird is that he wasn't even laughing. It's not like someone or some people were trying to make fun of me. It was so harsh that people were speechless. No one laughed. At all. I think they were as much confused as I was. I appreciate no one jumped on that after those 20 seconds, they all went like nothing happened. I am 35 and still remember this. Knowing how teenagers can be cruel, I hate this had a huge impact on me, but I remember people really tried to not make it a big deal. The group didn't fall into that, and they were between 15 to 17 years old. I think someone even said to the guy, "Are you being serious right now?" But I am not sure. I was really trying to swallow the humiliation. Number 9. Technically, it was said to my husband about me. A little backstory. I was raised in a religion where women are considered under men and encouraged to be humble, meek, and mild. I finally left the religion about 4 years ago, but my dad is still very much a believer. I was at a family dinner with family that I hadn't seen in years. My dad, grandma, and aunts. Everyone was talking and telling stories. I told a funny story about our daughter. Everyone laughed. Out of nowhere, my dad turns to my husband and says, "How do you even stay married to her? She was so quiet and shy when you met her. She was young and sweet. Now she's gotten old and just talks and talks so loud it doesn't stop. I don't see how you've listened to her voice all these years." Everyone was frozen. My husband said something about loving me more now than ever, but I have no idea what he said because I was so embarrassed and shamed. My aunt smacked my dad and asked him why he'd say that, and he laughed it off like it was a joke. It absolutely was not a joke. I shut down after that and would barely talk for the rest of the dinner because I knew I'd start crying. Number 8. My mother was having a bipolar episode, a pretty bad one that kept me at the time 8 years old, awake all night. I heard her arguing and screaming at my dad back and forth, the both of them. Then, all of a sudden, I hear my mom say the only kid I hate to death and wish I never had was my name, because she makes shit up and actually believes in her fake mind that I did stuff to her that I never did. That little girl is actually nuts and crazy. She makes everything up in her head, and she kept saying she makes everything up. I remember when I heard her say that I went through a feeling of blank-mindedness. Everything went gray and I felt the walls and everything around me grow bigger than me as I started getting smaller and smaller. I couldn't think of anything my mom's ever done to me, and I really felt that I had made everything up and I was a liar. After a couple minutes of the spiraling, I felt a sensation that it's not this way, and I kept telling myself she is abusive, I don't make it up, and I rocked myself to sleep as the sun arose. No other words I ever heard have made me feel the way those words have in the history of my abuse. Edit. She sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally abused, neglected us kids. 6 of us in all, saying, "Dad, my mom hates me. Ever since I was born, she has hated me the most, and I'll never know why I got it the worst. She hates me the most." Number 7. So I've actually never told anyone this, but here goes. When I was younger, my parents were going through a very rough custody battle with me right in the middle of it. I lived with my mom, and my dad was very emotionally and verbally abusive. He would literally interrogate me so he could have something to take my mom to court with. My mom fought like hell to keep me, and I wanted to be with her. My dad, however, thought otherwise. He would take her to court so many times. I've only ever been present once at these court sessions, but this one day, I forget what exactly was going on. But we were at home and my mom was venting, and she said, "I won't deal with this again, talking about court. I'll just pack your bags for you, and you can go live with him." I remember being very hurt, but I didn't show it. I felt like she didn't care what she would be sending me to, that I wasn't worth all the time she spent trying to keep me away from him. I questioned her love for me, and if that love had faded, I remember it, but we haven't talked about it since. I don't even know if I want to talk about it. Edit. She never actually followed through with what she said. Number 6. After what I thought was a good relationship in my 30s with my dad, I was having trouble accommodating his wife's son's wedding and my lifelong friend's wedding in the same week in 2 different states in the Northeast. I'm on the West Coast. I brought up the fact that I was having trouble, and my dad tried to fight me. Has never in my life been physical before. Called me a narcissist, that I'm a piece of shit since I was 17, and that I'm not to talk to him ever again, and if he ever sees me again, he will kill me. I didn't even meet my stepbro until my 30s and spoke to him previously about my difficulty finding flights. Anyway, at the time of the fight, I was still trying to find flights to accommodate both, but my dad telling me those things made up my mind for me. It's a shame, he's 71 and I probably will not talk to him ever again. I'm willing, but he is not. His white knight meter is out of calibration to say the least. So dumb. Number 5. The night before my wedding, my mother drunkenly told me what a horrible, selfish daughter I was. That my wedding was a f***ing circus. It was tented with calf lights. And she can't believe what an awful selfish person I am. Because I had my wedding in the state I had lived in for 6 years and none of her friends/family decided to travel to it. Oh, and she decided she would throw her own reception the next week, the reason no one decided to come to the actual wedding, which forced me to forgo a honeymoon and instead travel to my hometown to attend her second reception. Followed closely for when I tried to hang myself at 11 in my closet and the rack and shelf fell instead, and she told me, "You are too fat to hang yourself." Number 4. People like you are a statistic. Once you fail once, you'll keep on failing. Head of school when I had to repeat a year in undergrad, a consequence of being naive and finding myself in a shitty abusive relationship. I refused to shake hands with him after my final performance and told him that no, I wouldn't go to graduation because I'd have to shake his hand when he asked if I was attending. Also quite enjoyed sending copies of my 3D following degree certificates and signing a letter to the prick. Number 3. For my boss from my previous job. You're a headache to deal with and I regret hiring you. I wouldn't be surprised you don't give your girlfriend, friends, and family a headache. I was hired with this guy fully knowing I had little experience with the position I was hired for. I didn't lie during the interview. Number 2. You'll never be loved or cherished because you look like me. You will never belong anywhere. No one cares about you enough to actually be there for you. You will be a burden to everyone else. From dad to 11-year-old me after we argued about how he missed my birthday again. But looking back, I laughed because it seemed like he was projecting his own insecurities onto me. Lol. Odds are good that he absolutely heard those words directed at him from someone he admired or loved. Shame he has not dealt with that trauma. It doesn't have to be your trauma. You're a different person, different life, different options. Go on and thrive. Number 1. Took my math book up to the teacher's desk with a question. I wasn't grasping it. He slams my book on his desk and asks me if I was stupid or what. Small town school about 30 years ago. If I ever run into that prick, I have a few things to show and tell him. Alright fam, what a ride. Thanks for tuning in and sharing this journey with us. We've heard some incredibly powerful stories today, ones that remind us of the weight our words can carry. Remember, if you've been touched by any of these stories or had one of your own to share, drop a comment below. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to channel. Until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind with your words, and always remember, you're never alone in this journey. Catch you in the next video.